All the guards fled, yet one human stood before the Queen. The galaxy did not notice humanity. Not really. Among the thousands of starfaring species inside the Galactic Alliance, humans were classified as minor contributors. Their ships were outdated, their weapons unimpressive, their colonies small and scattered. They survived, yes, but survival alone did not earn respect in a universe ruled by ancient empires and terrifying powers. That was why, when a royal distress signal echoed through Alliance space, most fleets ignored it. The signal came from the Luminar Empire, one of the oldest and most respected civilizations in the galaxy. Their royal convoy had been traveling through a neutral trade corridor when it was ambushed by Void Reavers, raiders known for destroying ships and selling survivors. The convoy's escort was destroyed within minutes. The remaining ships were damaged, surrounded, and slowly being hunted. The Alliance flagged the region as high risk. Response time was estimated at several hours. Hours the princess did not have. Far away on the edge of mapped space, a single human vessel picked up the signal. The ship was called Resolute Dawn. It was old, patched together with mismatched armor plates and repaired engines that rattled whenever it jumped to hyperspace. It was not a warship. It was a long-range rescue and salvage craft operated by a small human crew. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge watching the distress data scroll across the main screen. The symbol of the Luminar royal family glowed bright and unmistakable. His first officer, Mara Chen, turned slowly toward him. "That's a royal signal," she said. "High-tier empire." "We are not equipped for this." Elias nodded. He already knew. The Void Reavers used fast-strike ships, heavy plasma cannons, and jamming fields that could tear ships like his apart. "Alliance response?" he asked. "Delayed," Mara replied. "Everyone is avoiding the zone." Silence filled the bridge. Protocol said they should log the signal and move on. Humanity did not have treaties that required intervention. No law demanded sacrifice. Elias stared at the screen. Somewhere out there, people were dying. A princess, someone young, probably terrified, was trapped in a collapsing convoy while the galaxy calculated risk and profit. He exhaled slowly. "Plot a jump," he said. Mara looked at him sharply. "Captain, I know," Elias interrupted, "but we're closer than anyone else. We won't survive a direct fight." "Then we don't fight directly." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had flown with Elias long enough to know that look in his eyes. Once he decided something, he did not turn back. The Resolute Dawn jumped. Space twisted and snapped, and moments later the ship dropped into chaos. Laser fire streaked across the void. Wreckage drifted in slow rotation. 3 Luminar escort ships were already destroyed, their elegant hulls torn open. 2 remaining vessels struggled to shield a central cruiser bearing royal markings. Void Reaver ships circled like predators, sleek and dark, firing in coordinated bursts. Alarms screamed as the human ship emerged. "Multiple hostile locks," Myra shouted. Elias grabbed the controls. "All power to engines, scramble signature." The Resolute Dawn surged forward, not toward the princess, but straight through the battlefield. The Reavers hesitated. The human ship's erratic flight pattern confused their targeting systems. Instead of clean attack vectors, the Resolute Dawn zigzagged, vented debris, and launched outdated countermeasures that cluttered sensor feeds. It was messy. It was inefficient. It worked. "Transmit open channel," Elias said. The bridge officer complied. "This is human rescue vessel Resolute Dawn," Elias said calmly. "We're drawing fire. Prepare to follow our path." There was a pause. Then a voice responded, tight, controlled, but shaken. "This is Princess Sarilith of the Luminar Empire. You should retreat. You will be destroyed." Elias smiled faintly. "We'll take that chance." The human ship darted close to one of the Reaver vessels and suddenly cut engines. It drifted dead, cold, and silent. The Reavers fired. The shot passed inches from the hull as Elias reignited engines and dropped beneath the enemy ship, releasing an improvised electromagnetic burst. The Reaver vessel's shields flickered, just long enough for the Luminar cruiser to land a heavy hit. One Reaver ship exploded. The Predators turned their attention fully toward the humans. "Captain, we can't take much more," Mara shouted as shields dipped dangerously low. Elias clenched his jaw. "We don't need to." He sent a tight beam message to the Luminar cruiser. "Jump coordinates attached." "Use our shadow, jump when we do." The princess hesitated. The Luminar jump drive was damaged. A mistimed jump would tear the ship apart, but staying meant death. The resolute Dawn charged straight toward the densest cluster of enemy ships. "What are you doing?" Mara demanded. "Buying time," Elias said. At the last possible second, he triggered the jump. Space folded violently. The human ship vanished. The Reavers fired at empty space. Then the Luminar cruiser jumped too, its drive screaming in protest, but holding together as it followed the human ship's trail. They emerged far from the ambush site, deep in an unclaimed system filled with gas clouds and unstable gravity wells. The resolute Dawn barely held together. Fires burned across the engine deck. Hull breaches were sealed manually. Half the ship's systems were offline. The Luminar cruiser drifted nearby, scarred but intact. Inside her vessel, Princess Sarilith stood frozen as reports flooded in. She had been trained for diplomacy, ceremony, and command, but not this. Not survival owed to a species the galaxy dismissed as weak. She opened a private channel. The human captain appeared on the screen, blood on his temple, uniform torn. "You should have died," she said softly. Elias shrugged. "We still might," her eyes lowered. "You did not ask for payment or recognition." "No," Elias replied, "just didn't think leaving was right." Alliance patrols finally arrived hours later. The Reavers were gone, the danger had passed, reports spread quickly. A human ship had intervened. A human captain had disobeyed protocol. A human crew had saved a royal heir. The reaction across the galaxy was laughter. Analysts called it luck. Officials called it recklessness. Commentators mocked the idea that a human rescue mattered. But far away, within the glowing halls of the Luminar throne world, Queen Valyrix listened to her daughter's report in silence. She watched the battle recordings. She saw the human ship place itself between danger and royalty without hesitation. She saw tactics born not from superior technology, but from refusal to give up. When the recording ended, the Queen leaned back slowly. "A human," she said, voice thoughtful, "risked extinction for a stranger." "Yes, Mother," Sarilith replied. "He did not even ask my name." The Queen's eyes narrowed with interest. "Then the galaxy has made a mistake," she said. "One it often makes." She turned toward the stars beyond her throne room, and for the first time in centuries, the Luminar Queen began watching humanity, because something had shifted. A species the galaxy ignored had proven one thing beyond doubt. When it mattered most, humans answered the call. The resolute Dawn returned to human space battered, scarred, and nearly held together by stubbornness alone. News of the rescue spread faster than the ship could travel. At first, the reports were confused. Then they became distorted. By the time the story reached the core worlds of the Galactic Alliance, the truth had already been buried under layers of opinion and ridicule. A human ship had interfered in a royal incident. A human captain had risked destabilizing a trade corridor. A human crew had acted without authorization. Those were the official words. The unofficial ones were worse. Lucky scavengers. Emotional primitives. Reckless mammals pretending to be heroes. The Alliance Council summoned Captain Elias Ward to answer for his actions. The chamber where the council met was enormous, designed to intimidate. Thousands of floating platforms surrounded a central space, each holding delegates of powerful species. Their forms ranged from towering and armored to glowing and barely solid. Human representation was small, only 3 delegates, seated far from the center. Elias stood alone on the circular platform in the middle. He wore a clean uniform, but the marks of recent battle were still visible. A faint scar crossed his temple. His posture was calm but alert. The council speaker, a massive insectoid being with layered eyes, spoke first. "Captain Elias Ward of Earth," it said, "you are accused of unauthorized intervention, reckless endangerment, and violation of neutral space protocols." Elias listened quietly. "You endangered a royal convoy," the speaker continued. "Your interference could have escalated a localized raid into interstellar conflict." A low murmur spread through the chamber. One delegate leaned forward, its voice sharp and metallic. "Humans lack the capacity to understand long-term consequences. This proves it." Another added, "Their emotional impulses make them unreliable." Elias finally spoke. "I answered a distress call," he said, his voice carried without effort. "Someone was dying. I was close enough to help." Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. "That is not how the galaxy works," a reptilian delegate hissed. "You do not risk war for strangers." Elias met its gaze. "Humans do." The speaker raised a limb. Silence returned. "You are fortunate," the speaker said. That the Luminar Empire has not yet issued a formal complaint. Until then, this council will delay judgment. Elias nodded once. Understood. He was dismissed without honor, without apology, and without thanks. Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, the crew watched the transmission in silence. They didn't even mention that we saved her, one engineer muttered. Mara Chen crossed her arms. They never do when it's humans. Elias said nothing. He looked out through the viewport at the scattered stars. Far away, on the Luminar throne world, Princess Seralith stood beside her mother in a chamber filled with light. Queen Valyrix was not a being easily impressed. She had ruled for centuries, overseen wars, crushed rebellions, and negotiated treaties that reshaped entire regions of space. Power was familiar to her, fear even more so, but the recordings she reviewed disturbed her in a different way. She watched the human ship again, its erratic movements, its damaged hull, the way it placed itself in danger without hesitation. She listened to her daughter's testimony, repeated calmly, but with emotion she did not try to hide. They mocked him, Seralith said quietly. In the council, the Queen's eyes narrowed. Of course they did, she gestured, and a holographic display shifted. Data streams appeared, human history, human conflicts, human survival records. What do you see? The Queen asked. Seralith studied the information. Wars. Disasters, extinctions avoided by narrow margins. And patterns, the Queen pressed. The princess hesitated. They adapt quickly, they lose, but they learn, the Queen nodded. Yes, they are not the strongest, they are not the most advanced, but they endure. She turned away from the display. The galaxy confuses strength with safety. Humans are neither, that makes them dangerous. While the Queen observed from afar, Elias returned to his normal duties, or tried to. Human command summoned him next. This meeting was smaller, colder, and somehow more uncomfortable. You embarrassed us, one official said bluntly. Elias stared at the table. I saved lives. You endangered relations, another replied. We are guests in this galaxy, not leaders. Elias clenched his jaw. We're not insects either, a pause followed. You will receive no promotion, the first official said. No commendation, in fact you are reassigned to deep range operations, away from Alliance corridors. A quiet exile. Elias accepted it without protest. The Resolute Dawn was sent back to the edges of known space. Weeks passed. Then months. The galaxy seemed to forget. But not everyone did. Princess Seralith watched human news feeds whenever she could. She learned their languages, their customs, their stories. She saw how often humans were overlooked, how often they were dismissed. She remembered Elias' face when he said he had answered because it was right. When tensions rose along the border regions of Luminar space, she warned her mother. The Reavers are moving again, Seralith said. In larger numbers, the Queen nodded. I know. They are adapting to our patrols, the princess continued. We may need unconventional help. The Queen's gaze flicked to the stars. I have been considering that. She summoned her intelligence council. Show me human tactical records, she ordered. The advisors hesitated. They are primitive, Your Majesty. Show me, the Queen repeated. They did. The Queen studied battles humans should have lost and somehow won, ambushes, sacrifices. Improvised solutions, crews continuing to fight even after command structures collapsed. They fight like they expect to lose, one advisor said, and refuse to accept it. The Queen smiled faintly. Exactly. Back on the Resolute Dawn, a secure message arrived. It bypassed Alliance channels entirely. Mara stared at the encryption in disbelief. Captain, this is Luminar Royal encoding. Elias frowned. Open it. The message was brief. No demands, no threats, only coordinates, and a seal, the seal of Queen Valyrix. Elias leaned back slowly. They remember, Mara said quietly. Yes, Elias replied. They do. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread again, not laughter this time, questions. Why was the Luminar Queen studying humans? Why were human tactics appearing in Luminar patrol movements? Why were pirates avoiding regions where humans operated, even in small numbers? The Alliance dismissed the rumors. They always did. But somewhere in the dark between stars, something was changing. The galaxy had mocked a human for acting on principle. Now it was beginning to wonder what else humans might do when pushed. The message from the Luminar Queen did not explain itself. It did not need to. Captain Elias Ward stared at the coordinates for a long time after the screen went dark. They pointed to a system near the edge of Luminar space, far from Alliance trade routes. A place that did not appear on most public star maps. Mara Chen broke the silence. That's not a request, she said. That's an invitation. Elias nodded, and ignoring it would be unwise. The crew felt it too, the quiet weight of something important pressing down on them. They had been laughed at, pushed aside, quietly exiled. Now one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy was reaching out directly. The Resolute Dawn changed course. The system was unstable, filled with drifting gas clouds and fractured asteroid belts. Gravity currents pulled at the ship as it entered, forcing constant corrections. Multiple vessels ahead, the sensor officer reported. Luminar signatures, heavy patrol. The human ship was escorted to a massive station hidden within the gas clouds. Its design was elegant and ancient, glowing with soft energy lines that hummed with restrained power. Elias was met by Luminar guards and led through halls that felt more like a temple than a military facility. Queen Valerix awaited him alone. She stood tall, her form radiant but controlled, eyes sharp with intelligence and age. Power clung to her not as a threat but as a certainty. "You came," she said. "I was invited," Elias replied carefully. The queen studied him for several seconds. "Most humans would be afraid." "Most humans would still come," Elias said. A faint smile touched her expression. "You saved my daughter," the queen said. "Not because of politics, not for reward." "No," Elias agreed, "just because she needed help." The queen stepped closer. "That is why you are here." She gestured, and the space between them filled with a holographic projection. Star systems flared into view, red markers pulsed along luminar borders. "The Void Reavers are no longer acting like raiders," she said. "They are organizing, coordinating, learning." Elias studied the map. "They're preparing for something bigger." "Yes," the queen said. "And my admirals are trained to fight enemies who follow rules." She turned to him. "Humans do not." Elias understood then. "You want human thinking," he said, "not ships, not numbers." "Correct," the queen replied. "I want perspective." Elias hesitated. "The Alliance won't like this." The queen's eyes hardened. "The Alliance has already chosen to underestimate you. That is their weakness, not mine." Elias agreed to help, but not as a conqueror and not as a commander, as an advisor. Human tactical teams were quietly embedded into Luminar planning groups. They did not bring advanced weapons. They brought questions. What happens when communications fail? What if command is lost? What if the enemy behaves irrationally? The Luminar officers were skeptical at first, until the first test. A simulated Reaver attack overwhelmed standard Luminar defenses in minutes. Then the human advisor suggested shutting down part of the station systems on purpose. "Why would we weaken ourselves?" an officer demanded. "So they think they are winning," the human replied. The simulation changed. The enemy overextended. Traps were triggered. The Luminar officers watched in silence as a scenario that should have ended in defeat turned into a decisive counterstrike. Word spread quickly. Not all reactions were positive. The Galactic Alliance noticed unusual movements. Patrol routes changed. Reaver attacks failed more often. Entire pirate fleets vanished without public battles. The Alliance called an emergency assembly. Queen Valerix attended. So did Princess Sarilith, and unexpectedly so did Captain Elias Ward. The chamber buzzed with confusion when the human stepped onto the central platform beside the queen. "This violates tradition," a delegate snapped. "A human has no place here." The queen's voice cut through the noise. "This human saved my heir. He stands where I allow." Silence fell. The speaker addressed Elias. "You are influencing imperial military doctrine." "I'm offering advice," Elias said calmly. "They choose what to use." "You are destabilizing balance," another delegate accused. Elias looked around the chamber. The balance already favored those with the biggest guns. Humans just fight differently. Princess Sarilith stepped forward. "And that difference is saving lives." The debate escalated. Then the alarm sounded. An emergency signal burst into the chamber. A Luminar border system was under attack, not by pirates, by a coordinated Reaver fleet larger than any before. The queen did not hesitate. "Observe," she said to the council. "If you wish to understand humans." The feed opened. Chaos filled the screen. Luminar defenses were overwhelmed until something changed. Human-led tactics unfolded in real time. Decoy ships lured enemy fire. Communication silence was used as bait. Reaver ships chased targets that led them into collapsing gravity wells. Human crews abandoned ships at the last moment, leaving behind explosive traps. The battle was brutal, but it ended quickly. The Reaver fleet was destroyed. The chamber remained silent, The speaker finally spoke. That level of risk is unacceptable. Elias met its gaze. So is extinction. Queen Valerix turned to the council. Humans do not fight to look strong, they fight to survive. She placed a hand on Elias' shoulder. And survival, she said, is the purest form of power. The gesture sent a shock through the chamber. Ancient royal law stirred. Symbols flared to life. Before anyone could speak, the queen's voice echoed through every channel. By my authority, I claim Captain Elias Ward as a protected champion of the Luminar throne. Gasps filled the chamber. This human is under my direct protection. Any harm to him will be considered an act against my empire. The words were absolute, binding, irrevocable. The galaxy watched as a human, once mocked and dismissed, was claimed by one of its most feared rulers. Elias felt the weight of it settle over him. He had not asked for this, but he accepted it. Princess Sarilith smiled softly. Across the stars, reactions exploded. Some empires were outraged. Others were afraid. Many began studying humanity more closely. Because something had become clear, the queen had not claimed a human out of sentiment. She had claimed him because she had seen the truth first. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they refused to give up. And now the galaxy had put a spotlight on them, whether it was ready or not. The galaxy reacted slowly at first, then all at once. News of the Luminar Queen's claim spread across every major network. Analysts replayed the footage again and again, freezing the moment when Queen Valerix placed her hand on the human captain's shoulder. Ancient legal symbols had ignited around them, confirming the claim was real, binding, and impossible to challenge without consequences. A human had been claimed by an imperial throne, not as a servant, not as a trophy, as a protected champion. For many species, the idea was unthinkable. For others, it was terrifying. Captain Elias Ward returned to Luminar space under escort. This time, the Resolute Dawn was not treated like an ignored rescue ship. Luminar war vessels flanked it with disciplined precision, their weapons active, their formations tight. Mara Chen stood beside Elias on the bridge. I don't like how quiet the channels are, she said. They're watching, Elias replied, trying to understand what just changed. The truth was simple. The rules had shifted, and the galaxy hated uncertainty. Within the Luminar Empire, reactions were mixed. Some nobles were offended that an outsider had been elevated so publicly. Others were uneasy, sensing the Queen's intent went far beyond gratitude. Queen Valerix did not explain herself. She never did. Instead, she acted. Human advisors were no longer hidden within planning rooms. They were openly integrated. Not in command positions, but everywhere decisions were made. Their role was not to replace Luminar doctrine, but to break it when needed. Human officers asked uncomfortable questions. What if your fleet is surrounded? What if your shields fail? What if your enemy wants to lose a battle to win a war? At first, many Luminar commanders resisted. Then they started winning. Border skirmishes that once dragged on for weeks ended in hours. Reaver groups vanished after chasing false signals. Enemy fleets hesitated, unsure whether what they were seeing was real or another trap. Fear replaced confidence. Other empires noticed. The Trellic Combine withdrew patrols from shared borders. The Karth Dominion delayed expansion plans. Trade guilds quietly adjusted routes to avoid systems where humans were known to operate, even in small numbers. A phrase began circulating among mercenaries and pirates. If humans are involved, walk away. No one wanted to test why. The Galactic Alliance tried to regain control of the narrative. Emergency sessions were called, committees formed, official statements released. The Luminar Empire is acting independently. Human involvement is minimal. There is no shift in power balance. Few believed it. Princess Sarilith watched the reactions from the throne world, standing beside her mother as reports flowed in. They are afraid, she said softly. Yes, Queen Valerix replied. Fear is honest. And humans? Sarilith asked. The queen's gaze turned distant. They are adjusting. Faster than expected. Elias felt the pressure building around him. Every move he made was recorded, every word analyzed. He was no longer just a captain. He was a symbol, whether he liked it or not. Some humans celebrated quietly, others worried. Human commands sent encrypted messages, cautious and restrained. You are protected, they told him, but do not provoke. Elias understood. He had no desire to provoke anyone. The galaxy, however, had other plans. The first challenge came without warning. A coalition fleet made of ships from 3 mid-level powers entered a disputed system near Luminar space. Officially, it was a navigation error. Unofficially, it was a test. Would the Queen respond? Would the human matter? Queen Valerix ordered no immediate action. Instead, she summoned Elias. "Walk with me," she said. They moved through a long gallery overlooking the stars. Luminar guards kept their distance. "They want to see if I hesitate," the Queen said. "If I will protect you only with words." Elias nodded. "And if you do?" "They will push harder," she replied. He considered that. "Then maybe we shouldn't push back the way they expect." The Queen's eyes flicked toward him. "Explain." Elias spoke carefully. "They came to show strength, so don't give them a battle, give them uncertainty." Within hours, Luminar systems began broadcasting contradictory data. Patrols appeared where none existed. Defense platforms powered up, then shut down. Human ships moved openly, then vanished. The coalition fleet hesitated. Scouts reported impossible readings. Some claimed Luminar weapons had been modified with unknown systems. Others reported human boarding teams that never appeared on visual feeds. None of it was true, but fear does not need truth. The coalition withdrew without firing a shot. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The Queen would protect her claim, and humans made that protection unpredictable. Not everyone accepted this quietly. A radical faction within the Alliance decided to remove the problem directly. A covert operation was authorized. Not against Luminar space, against Elias. The attempt came during a routine transfer between stations. A disguised transport slipped through traffic, releasing autonomous strike drones programmed to target a single life signature. Human reflexes saved him. Elias noticed the anomaly half a second before the drones activated. He shoved a nearby Luminar officer aside as security shields flared. Explosions rocked the corridor. The drones were destroyed. The attempt failed. The response was immediate. Queen Valerix's reaction was not loud. It was precise. She demanded the Alliance identify those responsible. They refused, so she acted without permission. Economic sanctions were imposed overnight, trade routes rerouted, key resources restricted, no fleets moved. No weapons fired. Entire sectors felt the pressure within days. The message was unmistakable: harm the human, pay the price. Princess Sarilith watched the reports with unease. "They will not forget this," she warned. "They already planned to challenge me," the Queen said calmly. "Now they know the cost." Elias struggled with the weight of it. He had never wanted power, never wanted influence. Now wars might start or stop because of him. He confronted the Queen privately. "This isn't what I asked for," he said. She studied him. "You asked for nothing. That is why I trust you." "I don't want humans blamed for fear," Elias said. The Queen's voice softened slightly. "They already fear humans. You merely gave that fear a shape." Outside Luminar space, something else was happening. Smaller species began reaching out to human worlds directly. Quiet messages, trade offers, requests for training. Humans listened. They did not boast. They did not threaten. They shared stories instead. Of survival, of loss, of rebuilding after disaster. It resonated. Because every species understood survival. By the end of the cycle, one truth was undeniable. The galaxy no longer laughed at humanity. It watched them, measured them, and wondered how a species once dismissed as weak had become the quiet center of so much change. At the heart of it all stood one human captain and one alien queen, not bound by fear, but by a shared understanding. The next conflict would decide whether the galaxy learned from that understanding, or paid dearly for ignoring it. The galaxy reached a breaking point without announcing it. There was no formal declaration, no dramatic broadcast, just a quiet shift as fleets moved, borders tightened, and communication channels filled with half-truths and nervous silence. Everyone felt it. The Luminar Empire stood firm, its borders calm but alert. Human advisors remained integrated, not issuing commands, but shaping decisions in ways that made enemies hesitate. Smaller species watched closely, uncertain whether to hide, align, or run. Then the crisis came, not from pirates, not from rebels, but from the Alliance itself. A coalition of major powers, frustrated by lost influence and frightened by the growing human presence, decided the balance had to be restored. They framed it as a peacekeeping action, a stabilization effort, a necessary correction. Their target was a border system shared by several minor species, one that had quietly accepted human training teams and Luminar protection. The coalition fleet arrived in overwhelming force. The message they sent was simple. Withdraw humans, submit to oversight, or be classified as hostile. Panic spread through the system. Civilians evacuated where they could. Local defense forces were outnumbered 10-1. Alliance commanders expected a quick surrender. They did not expect resistance. Queen Valyrix watched the live feeds from her throne room, expression unreadable. Princess Saralith stood at her side, hands clenched. "They want to make an example," the princess said, "of humans, of us." "Yes," the queen replied, "and examples cut both ways." She turned to Elias. He stood quietly, arms crossed, studying the tactical display. Hundreds of enemy ships, perfect formations, clean lines, predictable movements. "They think this ends with fire," Elias said. "And you?" the queen asked. "I think it ends with choice," he replied. Permission was granted, not to attack, to endure. Human teams spread across the system, coordinating with local forces. They did not rush to the front lines. They fortified evacuation routes. They disrupted sensors. They seeded false data across open channels. The coalition fleet advanced. Then things began to go wrong. Their scans showed ships where none existed. Their communications lagged. Orders contradicted each other. Small defense units appeared disorganized, then struck at supply lines with precision. Human-led civilian crews evacuated entire stations under fire without panic. When a transport was hit, others filled the gap immediately. No one waited for permission. The coalition commanders grew angry. They ordered a direct assault. That was the moment humanity revealed itself. Human strike teams did not meet the assault head-on. They slipped past it. Boarding parties disabled engines without killing crews. Sabotage teams cut power, then vanished. Ships were captured, not destroyed. Every loss the coalition suffered came with a message. "You are wasting strength. You can still stop." The message was ignored. The coalition fired on a Luminar patrol vessel. The Queen responded. For the first time since the crisis began, Luminar warships moved. Not in rage, in silence. Their arrival shifted the battle instantly. Coalition ships that expected a chaotic response instead faced precise containment. Escape routes closed, communications failed, panic spread. Princess Saralith watched the feeds in disbelief. "They are surrendering," she whispered. "Yes," Queen Valyrix said, "because they are being allowed to." The final confrontation came aboard the coalition flagship. Elias was there, not as a warrior, as a negotiator. The enemy commander stared at him across the chamber, disbelief etched across their features. "You're human," they said. "You caused this." Elias shook his head. "No, you did. You manipulated us." "You underestimated us," Elias replied. Again. The commander looked around at the silent bridge, the disabled systems, the intact crew. "You could have destroyed us." "Yes," Elias said, "but that wouldn't change anything." Silence stretched. "What do you want?" the commander asked finally. Elias answered without hesitation. "Recognition, not dominance, not control, just acknowledgement that humans exist and that we matter." The commander laughed bitterly. "You already matter, that's the problem." "Then learn to live with it," Elias said. The coalition surrendered, not just the fleet, the narrative. News spread across the galaxy faster than ever before. Humans had not conquered. They had restrained. They had protected weaker species instead of exploiting them. They had fought a superior force without hatred, without cruelty, and without retreat. The Alliance could no longer spin the truth. Emergency sessions dissolved into arguments. Accusations flew, old hierarchies cracked, smaller species openly aligned with Luminar space. Trade shifted. Influence changed hands, not because humans demanded it, because others chose it. Queen Valyrix addressed the galaxy days later. Her image filled every major channel. "The age of quiet suffering is over," she said. "Not because of war, but because of clarity." She turned slightly, gesturing to Elias beside her. "This human represents his species not because he is exceptional," she continued, "but because he is typical." That sentence shook the galaxy more than any fleet movement. "Humans do not seek thrones," the Queen said. "They seek survival. And they will protect it wherever they find it." Elias did not speak. He did not need to. When the broadcast ended, Princess Saralith approached him. "You changed everything," she said. Elias smiled faintly. "No, I just showed up." Humanity's reputation transformed slowly, then all at once. They were invited into councils, not as equals, but as voices that could no longer be ignored. Their methods were studied. Their history analyzed with new respect. And always there was caution. Because the galaxy had learned something vital. Humans did not need superiority to be dangerous. They needed a reason. Months later, the Resolute Dawn prepared to leave Luminar space. Repairs were complete, upgrades offered and declined. Mara Chen looked around the bridge. Back to the edge of the map, Elias nodded. That's where we're useful. Queen Valerix met him once more before departure. You will always have my protection, she said. I hope I won't need it, Elias replied. The queen inclined her head. Neither do I. That would mean the galaxy has finally learned. As the human ship jumped into the dark, the stars remained silent. But they watched. They watched a species that had been mocked, dismissed, and underestimated carve its place not through conquest, but through endurance. Humanity did not rule the galaxy. They did something far more unsettling. They changed it, forever, and whether it would be ready when they did.